Oh, hi all, welcome back to the 1 minute farming videos and the series on the Holbrook lathe. And in tonight's little video I'm going to put the clutch mechanism, this part there, etc., back into its housing. As you can see, I wasn't lying when I said about the bench is covered with shafts, cogs and all sorts, so I need to get it thinned out a bit. Now the clutch on this is of an expanding ring. This ring expands inside a, for want of a better thing, like a big overgrown brake drum. It's non-organic, it's all steel. It only expands by a small amount, and I don't know if you can see that. It's like a cam which is driven via this ratchety sort of bolt to its system. So I'm going to put the camera up here. Hopefully you will all be able to see what I'm doing. There we go. So the first thing to do, because this has a brake mechanism on it, the brake mechanism is a taper on the bottom of this this actuator here, and it locks into a taper in the bottom of the housing in here. So basically, when you pull the lever one way, there's a big lever. When you pull it one way to activate the clutch, it snaps the clutch into, it has a detent lever and it snaps the clutch in. But if you pull it in another direction, it will lock this system into the bottom of the housing. You adjust it on these two bolts. There's one here, there's one already put in. So we'll screw that back in there. So initially I thought you adjusted it just so that the whole thing was lined up central in the bottom of the housing, but then I realised if you did that, then the brake, well, the whole thing's out of line. I'm building it up dry at the moment because I'm just going to make it easier for the video, but I will everything will have to be oiled up and you know, made to move the slides. So that at the moment drops beautifully inside the housing. As you can see, if I push the lever down, I can't move it. If I just move the lever up, it revolves. So the first thing to do, the main hub, which is this part, you have a skirt type thing. I'm not too sure what this does, but it bolts onto the bottom of the hub like that. So I'm just going to loosely bolt this on. Hope you can see what I'm doing to some extent. You can't build it all up with the shaft, this shaft in it. It won't build up because you can't get the activator lever through into the casing. You've got to build it up in pieces. So we build it up there. So that's on there like that. So what we do is we drop this shaft over that hole and then line up the parts like so. Now I know that this bit, that bit is too far round, so when it's right in, I noticed when I took this clutch to bits it actually worked quite well, so I'm not wanting to, I just noted where everything went, and it was slightly off canter to this side. It does have some like witnessing marks on it where it's obviously been working, so we'll continue to use those. So it slides in just slightly off centre like that, and as you can see, hopefully you can see, the cam moves. and in doing so it expands the steel ring. Now if you notice there, it moves quite freely. If I pull the lever back, which will activate the brake, then it's locked solid. The brake didn't work too well when I took it to bits because it was absolutely plastered in oil in here. But I think I know the reason why. It had so much oil in it. There's a little bit of wear in one of the thrusts, so I've managed to just sort that out. But as I say, the whole gearbox system is a total loss system, so oil's going to be quietly leaking out of everywhere. So you have that there. Happy with that. In here there's like two fancy little I don't know what you call them really, but anyway they fit into two little pins in the expanding ring. So you sit that on, that sits over like that, and as you move the lever, the ring expands. Probably only expands by a few thousandths of an inch, but it's enough just to get hold of it's actually the pulley that sits in here and sits over it, and it gets hold enough just to expand this ring inside the pulley. Now to adjust it, you can adjust it on this screw, because there's on the bottom of that screw is a ramped up affair on a bolt. So when you screw it in, you're pulling it up, and it pushes that little doodad there out. I know it was screwed in by just slightly more than 3 turns when I took this one to bits. But I dare say that if you need to, you can mess around and adjust it as you need to go. And then you lock this up, don't leave it off. There's a screw there, you lock it up, so that screws in there. And it sort of nips down onto the shoulder of this other screw. Like that. And then you can't move that one. As I say, you can see this moving just slightly. I dare say now that I've had it to bits, it'll be to readjust again, but hey, that's the joy of it all. Then there's this little doodad here. It's like a pin with a screwed top on it. That goes in there, and that locks the cam into its housing like that. And then finally this ring here goes on, and some recesses for the screw, so they recess down. Pretty much. They just to say aren't quite there. So very gently tap it round. I think what that ring does is it keeps the expanding brick piece in position, and then you screw it in, more screws. Oh, that wasn't very clever, that one went through the bottom. So we can find that again. Just not wanting to go in now. Precisionally made this, it just amazes me how well it's been precision made. Everything fits beautifully. There's none of these screws are extremely tight. They all just had a bit of oil on them, and they just didn't, you know, hadn't come undone or nothing. They were just snugged up lovely. So you don't have to be winching hard on stuff. So yeah, so that's basically what we have. And there you go, that moves and nips inside the pulley. Finally, when you get into that position, I suspect this is going to be the difficult piece, is that you then slot this shaft from the bottom up over. The splines connect onto this block of iron here, and then the pulley spins on this area here, and the whole thing is then locked together with that threaded collar. Now there's a thrust washer here, goes on the bottom side, and there's a thrust washer goes on the top side, so we've buried that thrust washer inside. Now the lubrication to this, you'd think it would have to run in oil in here, so the oil went down this hole and came out this one. But I suspect that Mr. Holbrook was a bit crafty. What he did was, there's a hole in the gear there, and I think what it does is when the other gear, there's a much bigger gear runs on the side of it, and I think that that gear, when it's running over, squidges oil like an oil pump on a car engine, tractor engine, squidges oil into that area, which forces the oil out of this hole here, which lubricates this bushing. The other end is lubricated here. It has one of those oilers on here, and so you'll fill the hole with oil, put the cap on. I think we have the thing here, so it sits like that, and then when it's full, you turn it over and it will lubricate these holes, and that's the lubrication. As I say, it's all total loss, and the old-fashioned days you oiled everything regular. So yeah, so that's pretty much how it all goes back together. There are a couple of collars. There's a collar there which goes over the shaft and sits inside like that, and then as I say, the drum pulley comes on the top, and there's another collar that sits inside that, and it all just nips together. And as I say, you nip it up on that threaded collar, and then there's a grub screw goes in here and just nips the whole thing off. Obviously you don't want it too tight, you just want it so there's hardly any play on it, and it can just freely just rotate. So there you have it really. I'll bring the camera down here. So yeah, so I don't know if we can see that. But, you see that moving there. It's going to be a bit loose at the minute because obviously the shaft's not in, and so it can all just float around. And I say, if you push it the other way, it locks it up, and that's its brake. So yeah, those adjuster screws. One, as you can see, it's slightly canted this way to get it to make the brake work. Yeah, so there we have it. I was just looking at that last video I did regarding the lining up of the spindles on the tailstock and the main spindle. And I pointed out that you could adjust the spindle this way, but you couldn't adjust it upwards. And I got my horizontal and laterals the wrong way round. Oops. So there you go. So if you're wondering what I was talking about, that's what it is. I'm sure you would have realised. Okay then fellas, thank you very much. Hope it's been of interest. Alright then, bye.